Now for global business updates, Rotus Oddiri joins us. Good morning, Rotus.
Good morning, Dr. Abati. Your birthday party was awesome. It was great to be there. Good morning, Ayo. Good morning, Rufai. Good morning to all our viewers. Look, it's been ugly in the market. So the Asia, particularly Asia, tracking Wall Street, and it's mostly technology. Hang Seng down by 1.4. The Nikkei was down by 1.8. Look at the Kospi, 3.5. And I mean, the Kospi has been the outperformer in Asia. But you had Samsung, Hynix dropping. You had Samsung dropping, SK Hynix dropping. What is it? SoftBank dropping by as much as 8%. They announced that they had sold off their Nvidia position for about $5.8 billion. Shows you how much what they've made from their Nvidia, but that sparked a lot of fears. So that's that. But also, well, if Shanghai is down as well, that was also data coming out from China. If we move to China now, the slowdown we've seen, fastest pace in 12 months. So you had FAI here is fixed asset investments. The property sector is part of that, down by 1.7% January through October. The forecast was a drop of 0.8. The property investments taking the period of January through October, a 14.7% drop, and that was January through September, a 13.9% drop. That continues to drag down on China's economy. Can China still do 5% GDP growth this year? There are questions about that, but the property sector continues to be a drag. So we move on from there now to what we saw. This is okay. Let me actually flesh out some of this now. As far as industrial output, it was up by 4.9%, but the estimate was 5.5. 6.5 was what we saw in September. Retail sales, 2.9%. It did beat the 2.8% expectations. However, retail sales now, I think they're down now for a fifth consecutive month in terms of pace. So it slows for a fifth consecutive month. And then your manufacturing PMI at 49 because of all the holidays. Singles Day, it looks like it didn't really work out quite that well as far as spending was concerned. But that also dragged down on manufacturing activity because of the holidays. So that's what we're seeing from China. Now, the U.S. markets, this is where the story is. Sharp drop yesterday on artificial intelligence and basically the fear around a bubble and too much capital expenditure being put forward on AI and not enough in terms of returns. Your Dow Jones was down by 1.65, S&P 500 down by 1.66. Look at the NASDAQ, the tech-heavy NASDAQ. That is where you had your most, well, not really the Russell. The Russell was the most pronounced, but look at that, 2.29. The Russell 2000 is really about small cap stocks, and those stocks are mostly driven by what we see with interest rates. Now, it's a coin toss as to whether or not the Federal Reserve will cut rates in December, even if that will happen in January as well, because of the lack of data. The shutdown is over, but you had the White House press secretary saying that there's not going to be any data for October as far as CPI and jobs. So dragging it down. If you look at some particular technology names, part of the Magnificent Seven, Tesla fell by 6.64%, Palantir fell by 6.65%, Oracle. Remember the big story around Oracle in early October when they announced their big deal with OpenAI, saying they'll get $300 billion or so by 2032. There's been a lot of fear around the amount of debt that Oracle has to issue in order to be able to build out these data centers. I think debt to equity ratio is about 500% when you compare to your Microsofts and Nvidias and so on, who are about 50-30%. Also, their debt, I think, for this year is about 95 billion. It was 75 last year, and their estimates that it's going to grow to about 250 billion. So basically, they're saying that, look, you're tying all your revenue to just in OpenAI. Even OpenAI, by the way, they've announced they're going to go into adult content because they're so desperate to make some money and give money back to their investors. Nvidia also dropping by 3.5%. Beyond that, there was just a lot of bad news. Anthropic, which has Claude. Claude is one of the AI models. You can see that tweet on the screen there. We disrupted a highly sophisticated AI-led espionage campaign. The attack targeted large tech companies, financial institutions, chemical manufacturing companies, and government agencies. We assess with high confidence that the threat actor was a Chinese state-sponsored group. However, in a report that they released, the attack was carried out by AI agents, not necessarily human beings. So there's worries now about how AI can be used to carry out these attacks. Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut responded to this saying, listen, we have to use an expletive. We have to wake the blank up. This is going to destroy us sooner than we think. If we don't make AI regulation a national priority tomorrow, it needs to happen. It's not all bad news. Blue Origin, which of course is from Jeff Bezos, for the first time actually used a booster rocket, a reusable rocket, and actually landed it. Up until now, it's only been SpaceX that has been doing this. You can listen to folks sharing. Let's take a look at this quick clip of that rocket landing.
And we have landing burn ignition, T3 good engines.
We've got our booster landing burn.
Engine control looks good. Standing back to touchdown. Touchdown confirmed. GFP continuing to work. Sound system looks good.
So still on tech, there is a headline in Bloomberg today. We've had a debate around Africa's issues in one of our WhatsApp groups. Africa needs 1 billion jobs by the end of the century. Where will it find them? It's an open question for our viewers out there. You've got a picture here of some folks in fashion. It's not going to come from fashion. It has to come from technology. And there's an example here that I want to show. We talk a lot about output and our lack of output, or rather productivity, excuse me. And the question for me, for folks out there, is who does this onus fall on? Here's an example. There's a viral video that's on social media of a medical student, a young lady that is doing her makeup. She's about to go out with her friends' club to go and party. She's having a conversation with ChatGPT about antibodies. So she's literally studying as she's getting ready to go out. Take a look at the clip.
It's helpful for the body to have different classes of antibodies rather than just one type.
Okay, hold on. The different antibodies, I need you to go through them all again because I don't really remember.
1, IgG. This is the most abundant antibody in blood and tissue fluid.
Can you give me ways to remember them?
Absolutely. Happy to help you remember them with some tricks and also clarify the structure for you. IgE, think eek for eek, like an allergic reaction, or for eosinophils and parasites.
It looks on the picture like there's 4 light chains. So do the light chains have 2 different subunits? That's what I'm confused about.
But each arm of the Y shape has 1 heavy chain and 1 light chain. The light chains don't have...
Okay, so what questions could they ask me about the structure of antibodies other than the 2 light chains, 2 heavy chains? Like, how could they make that difficult for me on a multiple choice question?
For antigen binding. The answer will be the variable region at the tips of the Y. Ask which part of the antibody defines its isotype, and the answer would be the constant region of the heavy chains.
Wait, hold on. Go back and describe the variable region versus the constant region and how that determines the different isotypes.
Region determines the isotype or class of the antibody, whether it's IgG, IgM, IgA, IgE, or IgD.
So I'm assuming the isotypes are like the GME different types. Where is that constant region versus where is the variable region?
The constant region is recognized by other...
Productivity. Finally, I think we're going to be getting inflation from Nigeria later today. It is expected, we had, 18.3% for September. It's expected to decelerate to 16%. We'll see what those numbers, what they come up with, and we'll talk about that on Monday. That's our update.
Okay, thank you, Rotus. Not enough time for us to talk about this, but inflation. In the U.S., investors are worried about what the Federal Reserve will do in December. They don't have unemployment data, inflation data from October. Yeah. So the lack of economic data is causing a lot of anxiety, uncertainty, and putting a downer on Wall Street. But let's see what we have in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Rotus.